Hey, welcome back to Let's Talk About Fatherlessness. My name is Sean Teis. I'm excited to have my guest today, Andy DeNoon with Sunday Cool Tees. Is that the description? Cool Carl? What would you say? Where are you from?
There's a lot of stuff that Sunday Cool's doing, so I understand that's difficult because with Ninjas the Butterflies, with Cool Carl, with Sunday Cool Tees, it's just we're doing a lot, and I think it's a good problem to have, is that there's too many titles for everything. And so but I get to make videos and do some writing and literally just goof off for a job. So it's a pretty good gig.
That's awesome, man. You're hilarious. I've seen your videos. If there's any youth pastors watching this, I'm sure they've seen a lot of your content. You guys, I was introduced to you through Cool Carl videos with the camp rules. Some of the if you're listening to this, you've never seen them, go Google it. Go search for Cool Carl. Search for is that the name of the videos? I mean, was it Sunday Cool?
If you type in Sunday Cool anywhere, you're gonna find us. So Cool Carl on Instagram, Sunday Cool on YouTube as our YouTube channel. We just hit 1 million subscribers. So
wow,
if you're looking for video content, we're putting out stuff every week. So whether it's youth pastor related content or conspiracy theories from our podcast, it's all over the place.
it's awesome. Yeah, I played some of them for our youth group whenever I was a youth pastor. And I was telling you before we got on, my favorite one you've done is the and there's a bunch of them, but one of the ones you've done recently is the turn to your neighbor, and he's like, turn to your neighbor, punch him in the face. I mean, it's just hilarious. And the way you guys compose yourself on there, you act like a pastor, different things. It's so funny.
You gotta fake it till you make it type of thing.
Yeah, that's so great.
Now, it's so much fun doing it.
How did you guys get into making videos? I mean, so the Sunday Cool, tell them about Sunday Cool, and then tell them about how you got into making these videos and stuff.
Absolutely. Well, the owner, Steve Hooper, he started a t-shirt company way back in the 90s, been in youth ministry ever since then, and involved in youth pastors' lives. And then in 2016, he started a company with his family, and it's called Sunday Cool. And so they've only been around since 2016. And then I met Cool Carl in 2019, but I had been a big fan for a while because I was a youth pastor showing his videos at my stuff for a few years. And then got in contact with him. We started talking, come up with video ideas, and then one thing led to another, and they offered me a job. And so I was able to come back down here and just commit just to every week. We didn't know what our plan was. We just knew that we liked making videos, that we worked well, we thought well together, and we just started creating more videos and trying to get more creative as we do it. And it's just been a blast because we've been able to build our team since then and come up with crazier ideas, visit really cool people. And so just that's been it. And that's the cool thing. Steve never really put a structure or a box around what we do. So it's just kind of like make content, whatever that may be. And so it's just been really neat to see how we interpret that freedom into all these nutso videos. And sometimes they land, sometimes they don't. And there's people who probably check out our videos after this. They'll be like, yeah, not my cup of tea. Not my cup of tea at all, but that's fine.
There was one with that one pastor. You were sitting in the church, and he's like, I got a big house, I got a mansion. He's like,
dude, yeah,
that was
Jesse Duplantis, dude. That's one thing I was literally looking at yesterday for some video ideas. I was like, how can we make more fun of these prosperity preachers? Like, there's so much material, but it's like, how do we actually do it and do it in a fun way where it's not we're not meaning to tear them down or anything, but it's definitely a satirical viewpoint. And obviously try to bring attention to a bigger issue, but it's fun, man. It's fun to get creative in how we can keep coming up with, different ideas for the same type of ministry, same type of job. And so it's been a blast, a real cool challenge.
How far out do you guys record?
Oh, geez. We filmed today's video yesterday. So it's gets down to the wire sometimes. We try to batch process as much as we can, but we find that we lose our spirit of like just the spontaneity with that sometimes. And so if we have the freedom, we're only doing 1-minute sketches every week. And so they can be real quick. And a lot of the power just goes into the editing. So as long as our editors, I edit, we have another guy here, Andrew, as long as we can get the editing done, we're good to go. So we can crank them out usually a day before, a week before. But today we're actually filming a music video for Camp Rule. So that's why we're saving a little more time for the bigger projects. And we're doing like an actual music video for the Camp Rule. We wrote a rap song and everything. It's going to be wild. So It'd
Oh,
be
that's
good.
awesome. I love it. We'll
Yeah.
promote that. That's great. Now you also play a woman. Church. Is it Church Karen or is it
Just Karen. Yep.
just
Little
Karen?
Miss Karen. Yeah. She came out of a bit we were doing, and we just needed a girl character to be like it was that we did a Shark Tank. A youth pastor does Shark Tank, so he's
Uh,
asking for like a raise and stuff like that. And one of the judges was just a girl that I just put a wig on, and we named her Karen. We never thought it was going to be her complaining all the time, but it was weird how naturally I just got into that character. I'm talking to my therapist about it. But it's just this sassy Southern woman just doesn't like to put up with anything and just likes to yell and scream and
awesome.
complain about pretty much everything under the sun. And so that's been one that went viral. Starbucks even shouted us out at one point because we did a Starbucks video for the pumpkin spice latte.
Oh yeah.
And so we don't use her as much, but we pull her out. It's like kind of like Mariah Carey during the winter season. We thaw her out every once in a while during the fall
Yeah.
just to use her rage that builds up over the year.
Now going back, you said you were a youth pastor. Tell us more. Tell us about how your ministry experience. I mean, sometimes people think, well, you guys just make videos, but you actually have ministry background. Tell us about where you served at, what you did before
Yeah.
this.
I met Jesus in high school, and I fell in love with youth ministry because my youth pastor was just awesome, and he was just a great guy, and we did everything together. He basically was a dad to me in a weird way, where I when I didn't really have anyone to talk to, or if I needed to stay sleep over somewhere, he put a bed in his entryway just for me, and for some of his youth that he knew that would have to crash over, and so it was a really cool thing. But then that was in Southeast Kansas where I went to a camp, found Jesus, found my wife, and then we moved to Joplin, Missouri to go to Ozark Christian College. Became a youth pastor there with school. Became a youth pastor there, and I was doing youth ministry for about 7 years. And so it was full time for most of it. And golly, dude, it was just an incredible opportunity just to because that's just what I love. I had a group of 30 strong kids, and we had a church of 200 people, and it was just fun. It was just a good time, and there's a lot of growth. And on my part, because they hired me at basically 19, and so it was tough to pastor to kids that are about graduating high school that are about the same age as me. But ever since then, it's just I've been involved in youth ministry. I moved down here. I'm not a youth pastor now, but I'm a youth volunteer. So I hang out on the Wednesdays and lead a men's group and stuff like that. So it's always just been a part of my heart. And youth ministry just seems like such a missed opportunity for a lot of people. But I just have a passion for it. I just have to be checked in somehow to the youth ministry world. So it's fun to be able to still go out and speak and travel and stuff like that. And on top of what we do, also it just gives us a ton of material and doesn't allows us to keep our finger on the pulse of youth ministry for be able to make jokes and content that youth pastors and kids are going to love.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
great. It's awesome. And do you ever want to go back into being like a full-time pastor? Or are you good with kind of the area you're at now?
I love what I'm doing now, so I can't imagine. But I mean I can imagine then working working in a church one day or going even camp ministry. I love camp ministry as well. So those are doors that I allow, like, not I allow, but I'm like, I let God know that I'm like, hey, I'm completely open to anything. But right now, what he has me doing, I still can't believe because it's just such a weird world. And things have just taken off here in a weird way where it's nothing we're doing. It's like, there's no way we're this funny or this good. God's kind of putting us in really cool positions to talk with people. And even through our comedy, weirdly enough, even through our just ridiculous videos, we've had people email us and, hey, I'm hanging out with my dad again, and this is the one thing we bond over. This is something that helped me start thinking about going back to my Christian roots again. This has made me pick up the Bible once more. So it's kind of those little reminders like, okay, we're doing stuff that's important, even though it is poop jokes and silliness and wearing wigs and stuff like that. It's there's always those little nuggets that kind of help us stay focused and keep going. So ministry will always be in my heart. So I can imagine there's going to be something in the future. I love it too much to not be part of it somehow.
Yeah. Now tell us
Yeah.
about Sunday Cool. Just go ahead and dive into that real quick.
Yeah.
What do you guys do there?
Oh yeah, Sunday Cool. 2016 they started, and it's a t-shirt company. So custom apparel. So we print. We have our own brand of super soft t-shirts. We do water-based ink, but we do hats, stickers. We literally do everything we can to like be a youth pastor's best friend of like, hey, we know you have camp. We know you have this D now. Give us the design. Let us help create the design. Let us just handle it. and get it to you so you can worry about the more important things. So that's kind of what we do. But we do companies, restaurants all across the world, in different countries and stuff like that. But we just specialize in customized apparel. And luckily, somehow our marketing has turned into what I do. And so that's it.
Now, has the videos? I mean, they've really helped Sunday Cool, right? I mean, it's taken it from probably a smaller company to what it is now, right? Is that
Totally. I mean,
fair to
there's
say?
no need. Yeah, there's no need for that. That's what Carl did. You know, he was
Yeah.
printing shirts. Josh was printing shirts, and he's like, I want to get out of this because he's been doing it for years. And so they said, make a video. Long story short, those videos went viral, and he now has his own department. Now we have a podcast that's 30 spots away from Joe Rogan, and it's just
Wow.
doesn't make sense. Like it's absolutely wild to think of it that way. So, and we're not paying for billboards or commercials. It's just this content marketing team that's doing their best to get it out there. And so obviously Carl's a big part of that, and our content's a big part of that. But then we have a whole team that's just crushing it and just putting us up in a good spot and realizing what we have and just throwing fuel on the fire. And that's the one thing, is just like I said before, just allowing us to have that creative freedom and letting us run with it. And so that's luckily brought people's eyes to Sunday Cool, even though we promote a lot of our videos have nothing to do with t-shirts, but yet somehow people still Google Sunday Cool. I'm like, oh, cool, I'll order shirts from these guys. So
Yeah. Well, I
it's
think you
fun.
guys are meeting a real need. I mean, because youth pastors, they need stickers, they need T-shirts, they need content, and even humor. Just
Mhm.
humor, we need it in our society. I mean, honestly, there's so many depressing things going on when you just can make people laugh. I mean, I love comedy, so I'm
Yeah.
a big comedy guy. I just love listening to you guys and like Nate Bargatze, those kind of things. Just
Yeah.
it lightens life up, And so,
Oh, it's so crucial, and it's definitely an emotion and a characteristic that God intentionally gave us, and it's because we're able to help people laugh in the most difficult times. Like we came up with a video called "Don't Quit Ministry," and it's this guy who's in the kids ministry, and he's like, "Hey kid, 1 second, I'm gonna go outside," like that tone, and then walks
yeah,
outside and breaks down. I want to quit, and it gets slapped in the face, and it's just like, we'll laugh about it. Let's talk about how tough these things are, how ridiculous these things are. Like, yeah, youth pastors are underpaid, but we can still make jokes about it. And like, hopefully that brings light to these certain things and levity to it. And people don't take it so seriously or themselves too seriously. So yeah, like you said, I think it's absolutely crucial. And I'm glad you see that way too.
oh yeah, you guys are like the skit guys on steroids, man. You guys are. It's
Hey, someone called us this generation skit guys. I'm like, I will happily. I don't think
oh
we're
yeah.
up there yet, but I will happily take that compliment. That's an awesome comparison.
That's great. That's awesome.
Mm.
Now let's go ahead and dive into your story a little bit. Steve told me, Steve Hooper, the CEO or president, whatever his title is, at
Yeah.
Sunday Cool, the founder, he said to interview you. I met him at an event in December, and he said that you grew up fatherless, and I think I saw maybe in one of your podcaster videos that you mentioned about that. And so, tell us about your story of growing up without a dad.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's just kind of strange. I was born in Whitefish, Montana, and I have four siblings, and all of us had different dads. Um, we had two of my siblings, their dads were a part of their life in a way where you saw them frequently. They were never in the house or anything. They lived separately. It was, kind of just not joint custody. It was, I think I kept the courts out of it. But the my sister and I, we were told we had the same dad, and we never met him or anything like that. And my mother had other guys in her life at the time that were really abusive to her and to us. And so it was kind of a really rocky start from the get-go. And then at around, I think it was like 6 years old, when my stepdad stepped in. Her and my mother, him and my mother met, and they just started traveling, because he was a golf course designer. So every few months, once or twice a year, we would pack up, go to a different state. Sometimes at one point a different country, and
Mhm.
it was one of those things where it's tough. He had kids, he had a previous marriage,
Yeah.
and there was just never any really click there. It was one of those guys that I'm super grateful for how he raised me, of taking care of me, feeding me, but there was never really a relationship with him, and he
Yeah.
was vastly different. He was not a talker. He did not talk about his emotions. He had a rough upbringing with his dad, being a real tough guy. And so it was difficult, and I didn't know I needed anything like that. So traveling from place to place, not having any friends, in a spot, not knowing how to reach out. Like we were always going from one place to one place. So I'm trying to connect with people, and I became a kind of an outgoing kid just because I wanted to have friends. And over the years, I had guys who really kind of just, stepped in tiny ways, teachers. But I always had this neighbor that was always like, his name was Dan. He was always just a great guy that whenever we came home to a place in Kansas, which is our house that like, in between moves, we always come back and stay there for maybe a couple of weeks or go to school there for a little while before his next move. And right down the road, there was this guy named Dan who kind of was my father figure in a way, where I would go to his place after school and hang out, and we'd play games and watch wrestling. And he taught me about cars and all these things. And so that was kind of the first person I felt like that was like somebody who showed that they wanted to invest in me or get to know who I was. And that was a really cool thing. And that went on for years, and we traveled a ton. And me and my stepdad just still never, we just never saw eye to eye. I never felt like he desired to be with me, desired to talk to me, and I know it's tough, he had a lot of baggage as well. But later on in the year, a few years later, Dan turns out to be a terrible guy and kind of breaks my trust in a form of abuse.
Mm.
And so after that, that was a really tough time for me to kind of like come to terms with who can I rely on, right? I felt kind of hurt, because I felt like I should have been protected in a way. I didn't feel protected. I didn't feel cared about, especially at this time, what I was going through. And there was a lot of suicidal thoughts, attempts, kind of stuff that was happening. This is all when I was just 13.
Wow.
And went through high school. He was traveling a lot. He was in Korea doing jobs. And so I never even, in high school, we really didn't even get to see each other because he started going on the road by himself when I think we just started staying put in Kansas. And so that whole high school career, those first couple of years were really, really tough, where I was depressed. I was thinking about suicide every single day. And it was a difficult thing because I'm still, there's still things I'm processing. I'm only 30 years old, and I look back now and I realize, what would I have done? And it's a difficult thing. And high school was really, really tough, just simply because home didn't feel safe. There was no excitedness to talk with parents, to talk with them about tough things. There was no one to talk about those things. And until I met Jesus, until I was starting to kind of open up my heart towards him a little bit, because there was a lot of anger. And so meeting my youth pastor, Matt, he was a guy that first ever started talking to me about emotions and what it looks like to sacrifice and to give up everything to Jesus. And that means everything, the guilt that I felt, the struggles that I was going through, all of that, could be carried by Jesus. But it was definitely tough trying to let go of that and trying to see how someone could actually want to have that type of relationship. So the relationship with the dad, I feel like I'm rambling right now, but the
No, this
relationship
is
with the
good.
dad was always kind of a weird one, where I felt like I just didn't need it. I just, you don't have it, you just deal with it. You got to.
Yeah.
And raising my kids now, turning 30, my oldest is almost 9. I'm looking back now, I'm like, man, I wasted so many years of their first few years just not identifying the negative aspects of my parenting as much as I should have. And understanding why I'm acting this way, what's the root of this? Like, why am I getting defensive over a simple question, from my wife, who doesn't want to hurt me, who doesn't want to, who isn't blaming me, who isn't, it's hard to rewire your brain. And so that was kind of the stuff that when I wanted to get better and I wasn't getting better, I had to start asking those tough questions. And it led to me thinking about my childhood and my father. And I don't know, a lot of realizations come with that, And so I guess I don't even know where I'm going with this, but it's like I said, I hadn't even thought about this whole interview really, because I was just like, I don't even know what to say. I don't want to come off like I have it all figured out, because I truly don't. But there is, right now I'm in that stage of trying to figure out the grace part with my stepdad, because I know he did care for me. He took me and my three siblings and my mom, and took us on the road and took care of us and provided for us. But there are spots that I'm like, what about this? Why couldn't we have done this? Why couldn't we have tried harder in this area? Why did
Yeah.
this never happen? So there's that grace and that understanding that I'm trying to work through, because just had my mother over for the Mother's Day, and we don't have a super great relationship, but I love her to death, and it's hard. But even just talking over this weekend about how her mom never taught her emotional intelligence and emotional control, and she's getting better, and so it's hard to reconcile that and juggle that and not put the guilt on them. And because I do feel a lot of anger towards them in certain ways, which is sure fine as a kid, like you like that makes sense. But how do I process that and deal with that as an adult? Has been, I don't want to say fun, but it's been fun to learn from God in that way, of just like, he's like, it could be a whole lot worse. And like things are so much bigger than my situation. And so that's something I'm just kind of wrestling with right now. Hope that makes sense.
No, it really does. Because I mean, I think your story really relates to the fatherless and the single moms and the people that are listening to this, because it's raw and real. I mean, that's what I talk about my story all the time, growing up fatherless, and I never met my dad till I was 15 years old, and he was an abusive alcoholic before he left, and all this stuff. But they're messy situations, and so I think
Mhm.
your story is relating, and you're still processing. I mean, I'm almost 40 this year. You're 30, so you're still working through it. I remember when I was 30, I was still trying to figure things out, and I'm still trying to process some things, but I feel like I'm getting a better grip on but it's a lifelong process of
Yeah.
overcoming and trying to understand our childhood. And I mean, a lot of weird things go on when we're kids and we're growing up in these dysfunctional situations, you know what I mean? And then these people
Yeah.
come into our life that we think we can trust, and then we realize we can't trust them, or that we think we can trust them. And I didn't have a stepdad, but I had different family members that were in my life that were not the best people. You know what I mean? They
Mhm.
should have been better. They should have been better influences, like different uncles and stuff like that. And they didn't really care.
Yeah.
They didn't take time. So speaking real quick to there's so many things I want to talk to you about, but speaking real quick to the stepdads out there that are going to, what would you say to them? Just, and not slamming your stepdad, but what would you say that they could do better? Because I know there's a lot of good dads out there. They want to try and they're trying to figure out how to do it. How can they relate better to their kids? What's some things you wish would have happened?
Yeah. And it's things that I'm just realizing that I'm doing now, that I realize in my kids they love, or that are helping them grow. And I'm like, okay, this would have been beneficial for me. And it's simple things like just talking with them, like
Yeah.
just asking them questions about their day and why. So why did they? So Liam's your friend at school, right? Does he get in trouble a lot? Like it's just nonsense conversation, but they love it. They eat it up, and just so showing authentic interest in a child's life, I think is so crucial, because it proves to them that you care. Like it's your whole parenting life, you're just trying to prove to your kid, there's nothing I wouldn't do for you. I have so much love for you. And it's hard to show that. Even like when you're married, like how do I show my wife? And I do it in the wrong love language. Dang it. Like, like you try so hard, but it may not be being perceived. And so understanding, how does your kid feel loved? Is it literally just hanging out with them? Is it playing? But like I remember the one time my stepdad played hoops with me when I was in high school.
Mm.
The only time he came out and he shot like three times, and it was like he drained like three of them. And I was like, this is amazing. And the fact that
Yeah.
like that was the only time I ever had a chance to just like to that he wanted to go out there and just shoot something. I'm like, and I just still remember it. So like that simple fact of just spending time, intentional time, telling yourself, I'm going just to sit here and I'm just gonna be like I'm their biggest fan, or like I'm interviewing them or something. It's a
Mhm.
simple thing, but it truly, I realized that just going to bed, my oldest daughter going into her bed at night when my other one's asleep, the younger one, and just asking her about her day, and she'll just ramble about stories that happened that day, and I just have to shut up and listen. And that means so much to her because she expects that now and she wants that now. She literally holds on to stories just to tell me. And
Mm.
so it's things like that that I truly feel like is what's going to make the difference.
Yeah.
And so
That's so
I know I would have loved that.
That's so powerful. That's so good. Now you said your youth pastor really helped you. Tell more about that. Like, what did he do? I mean, what was the difference there? I know you said he had a bed and things like that at his
Yeah.
house, and but what was? Because I had a youth pastor that poured into my life starting in seventh grade. He came and he like basically rescued me. I had a grandfather that was my basically became my dad when my dad left. I was about 10 months old. My dad left, and my grandfather picked up the pieces, and then he died. My grandfather died when I was in sixth grade, and I was kind of a mess. And so just
Mhm.
that whole process. But that youth pastor came in when I was in seventh grade and just kind of poured into me for a few years. Tell us about your youth pastor experience.
Dude, it was one of those things where like those relationships where you're like, I don't know if you're supposed to be like this chill with your students, like, but he was just like, I was his right hand man. Like I helped him do
Yeah.
everything. I would spend my weekends, my Sundays after church, making videos, organizing, cleaning, like whatever we had to do just to hang out because he truly won. He was himself. And so we joked around. We talked about everything that he was interested in, what I was interested in. But then there'd be days where, I mean, like for 2 years, he said, okay, what mornings do you want to meet at your lunch? I'd love to just have like breakfast with you, like once a week at lunch. It was an hour round trip. It was 30 minutes to the high school and 30 minutes back.
Mm.
He drove that at 7 a.m. every single Monday morning just to have breakfast with me. It was with no question. There was never a thought if we were out, he'd buy me lunch because he knew I was a high school student that didn't have anything. Like there was never a question. He never saw me as, I'm the teacher, you're the student. It was, I'm going to truly live life with you. You're going to be an uncle to my kids. You're like, and I did that. He did that with everybody. Like we had a high school of 60 kids, and almost every single student one year had been to youth group at one point just because
Wow.
he was a part of the high school. Like he was just known, and that's just who he was. And he cared about you. He remembered your name. And that was one of the biggest things because I remember my first interaction with him. He's about 6'4", 300-pound dude. He's like, "You're Andy, right?" And I said, "Yeah." "What's up?" He's like, "Man, I hear a lot about you. You should come to youth group." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And like the fact that I'm like, you knew my name, he knew a little bit about me, he cared enough to go after that information and remember it. And it's just like, like Zacchaeus, Jesus calling Zacchaeus by name out of the tree on the way to die in Jerusalem. It's like he's not too busy just to call this dude by name and have dinner with him. And I think that uh, really proved to me that he wanted to be a part of me, not because I was funny, not because I was popular, because I was those things in high school. And I was that class clown that just wanted to be everyone involved. I was the leader of the pep rally. But this dude, like, called me out on my BS. He really, truly understood what I was struggling through. And he's like, he knew that what I put on was a lot of a front. And there was a lot of anger and a lot of depression dealing underneath the surface. And he was able to talk me through that, but then also not let me sulk in it and say, okay, let's go to youth group. And then I'm able to help and lead. And so I'm growing through it and healing through it. And he was pivotal in that. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2019, right before
Mm.
I moved down here. But so that was one of the first times I'm like, of losing anybody that I
Yeah.
truly like was close with. And so that's one of the things I've been struggling with. Like I've never had real anger toward God as an adult, but I'm like, man, why does that make sense? Like that's like that to me, that truly makes no sense of why this person would leave. Because the impact they're already making on earth and you can see the fruit, it's happening, it's consistent. So it was like that was something I dealt with and losing a father figure in that way. And now I'm at this stage where it's like I'm trying to be my own father figure, trying to surround myself with people I know who are following God. And it's tough. It's difficult because I want that fatherly figure in my life that I can, you know, um, duplicate what they're doing, imitating them, and on a practical level. Because it's easy to imitate Jesus, but it's like, how do we parent practically from the Bible? Like, what is this? How do I struggle with my daughter who's having low self-esteem issues? And to see that on a practical level with a man of God leading an actual family is crucial. And so it's tough to find those role models nowadays,
Yeah.
especially after you lost someone who was that for you. And so that's something it's like losing a father like that, not having a father kind of growing up and having a stepdad who really didn't desire a relationship with you, or at least didn't show it in a way that I understood it. And then, losing the one guy who really stood up for you, it's one of those learning things. Like, what can I learn from this, God? Look, I'm super grateful for what he did in my life, because it was huge for me. And I think that's what I love about doing it now, because I was on the phone with a youth that I've had for the beginning of my youth ministry career. He called me yesterday, and he's having a really tough time. He's going through marriage troubles of his own and struggling to get out of the patterns of his own father. And you can see it's already leaking into his marriage, and his marriage is only 3 months old, and it sucks. And it's like, what it is a huge issue. And so trying to be that for this kid is a cool opportunity, I guess. I didn't even put that together because it's so fresh, but me being able to be the mat for this guy is just maybe another way I can continue to keep growing and continue to be that for other people. And so the pattern can keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing what you said, because I mean, your mentor has passed. Do you have any mentors right now? Or I mean, you said it's hard to find people that are influencing your life. Do you have anybody?
And it's one of those, I don't hope no one's listening, but they're like, wait, I thought it was his mentor. I don't have anyone I can consistently call. Like, I'm meeting with this person, I'm talking with this person on a regular basis. And this is someone I admire as a father and as a Christian. And I know I know people like that, but there hasn't been a general relationship built. And I know that's partially my fault. And so that's something I'm definitely looking into. It's even as silly as literally making a list of like, who can I look at and say they're following in Jesus's footsteps? They're the type of father I want to be. And I have to physically write them down and look at those names, because I feel like that's what's going to help me. And okay, how can I start pursuing a relationship with them and not overwhelm them, and not becoming stagnant. That's my ultimate fear, is just becoming a stagnant parent.
Yeah, definitely. And that you're in the process of breaking the cycle right now. I mean, you're breaking the cycle for your own kids, and that's something that it call us the cycle breakers, right? Where we're trying to break the cycle of what we had when we were teenagers, we were children, and the future that you're putting for your kids. I mean, we're not going to be perfect, right? But we're doing our best to try to be good parents and to try to do the ministry God's called us to do. And I think you're doing good work, man. I think that you're encouraging people, and you're bringing humor, and you're discipling people. That's amazing. I love what you're doing.
I appreciate it, dude. It's a cool calling, and it's an awesome calling. And I think if I can encourage any people who are listening, we talk about what encouragement would you give for stepdads or even just parents in general. Also, don't be afraid to apologize. Like, that's my biggest takeaway right now, where it's like, I am struggling, I am dealing, I am growing, I'm not who I want to be. I did lose my temper, I did say the wrong thing. Become a parent who apologizes genuinely to their kids and can show them, listen, that was a bad thing I did. I should not have said that, and here's why.
Yeah.
And that's on me, and that's something I'm working on. Because if they know you didn't mean to hurt them, like, it feels so intentional. It feels so personal. All of these things, even neglect feels personal. Like, it's not. It's there to have their own parents who neglect, or they just don't have the priorities right. But it's not, and they're not doing it to intentionally hurt you. And so, apologize. That's something I'm constantly doing, just to let them know, not in a big way. I'm not apologizing all the time, cry baby for me, but just say, hey, I didn't mean to do this. Shouldn't have lost my temper there. I apologize. Let me know if you need to talk about it, but let's keep going. Just
that's good.
even things in the past, even if things are too far gone, because that's something I know I would love to be able to hear, is just like, I just want to know that that was wrong. I need to hear that that this was a wrong thing for you to do, and that you recognize it, and I'll forgive. I'll move on. But I just need to know that, like, it wasn't personal, it wasn't intentional, and maybe that's just a personal thing that I'm working through. But I do think that never being too big to apologize to your kid, even no matter how old. Never be too prideful to not just swallow that pill and have that discussion, because it'll lead to great things, and they're going to want to do the exact same thing when they mess up and say the wrong thing. They're going to understand it, and they'll follow in that. They'll follow that practice for sure.
That's so good, man. Well, we have about a minute left, and I just appreciate you being on with us and sharing your story and the transparency. I really think it's going to be a blessing to all the different listeners that we have with ministry leaders, but also fatherless families. And so thank you for sharing your story. Can you just share how they can find you and your organization?
Heck yeah. Go search Sunday Cool on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We're all over. We're dropping videos on Cool Carl every Wednesday. We have Ninjas and Butterflies, a podcast that drops every Friday. It's comedy, conspiracies, Christian talk. It's a blast, and it's a video, and we have Patreon, so there's more content. And hit me up on Instagram if you have any questions or ever need to talk or anything. Living for the Dash is my username. So I appreciate it, Sean. I love what you're doing. The ministry is great, and happy to be back anytime if you ever want to talk more.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for being on with us today, okay?
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode of Let's Talk About Fatherlessness. We want to now challenge you to take the next step by either starting a single mom community group in your church or with your ministry, or by joining our network of God is My Dad churches and ministries. Isn't it a great experience to be able to start a single mom community group?
Yeah, and it's just, if you talk to single moms, a lot of times what they'll tell you is the one thing they're lacking is that community, just a group that they can go in and they know there's no judgment. You know, everyone may not have the same situation. Everyone doesn't know what they're going through, but they can go in and they know there's no judgment. And it takes that kind of that restriction and that wall down for them so that they can share and then that they can grow in Christ.
And our single mom community groups are a wonderful ministry. And if your church can start one, we'd love to have you. We can help you get set up. We have the curriculum and all the resources you need. If you can't start one, we'd love to have you start by joining our network of churches and ministries, our God is My Dad network of churches and ministries, where you can get your church or your ministry on our map, and people can find you and find your ministry in your church so that they can get plugged into your church or ministry locally. So check that out. You can find all these resources at lifefactors.org. We have books, we have all kinds of content on there at lifefactors.org. Check it out today.